Hello and welcome. Today we venture deep into the woods to meet the mysterious Gnomus muscus. The Gnomus muscus, or moss gnome, is one of the smaller Gnomidae Magions. They are usually about 70 to 80 centimeters tall, but are surprisingly heavy for their size, thanks to their rock-like skin. Their skin becomes thicker and more condensed as they mature, and an adult moss gnome weighs about 60 kilograms. Some are known to have reached 100 kilograms and are rather proud of it. Their stone skin is almost completely covered with moss, with which they have a symbiotic relationship. The moss is provided with a nice warm surface to grow on, while the gnomes absorb nutrients from the moss directly through their skin. While moss is their main source of nutrients, moss gnomes are known for their love of mushrooms. In fact, the long thin whiskers growing on their brows that can predict changes in the weather also help estimate the probability of a mushroom growing nearby. Moss gnomes spend much of their time sleeping in near hibernation state. Often they are nestled between the roots of a large tree. They do not really have a social structure, since they prefer solitude for their naps. But once in about 15 to 20 years, an adult moss gnome will grow lonely and decide to procreate. They will then remove the single protruding tooth from their mouth and plant it in the ground next to them. This tooth is actually an unfertilized embryo, and once placed in the earth, it becomes fertilized and begins to develop. After 6 to 8 months, a young moss gnome will open their eyes to the world. A 4-year-old moss gnome is considered an adult and is fully capable of taking care of itself. This is probably a good thing because after 4 or 5 years of close company, the moss gnomes usually grow tired of each other, and the young one leaves to find, quote, a nice quiet spot away from everyone else where they can finally have a good nap. End quote. The tooth takes about 7 years to fully grow back, but it usually takes at least double that time for the moss gnome to actually want company again. Moss gnomes usually stay in their quiet spots, but they have been known to approach humans. If a moss gnome approaches you holding a sock, do not be alarmed. Moss gnomes consider themselves sworn enemies of the sock-nicking nixies, and when they meet one, they do their best to return the stolen socks to their owners. They will usually just leave the sock behind the dryer or a laundry basket, but sometimes they happen upon the owner at home. If this happens, do offer them some mushrooms or a wheat germ smoothie. It's only polite. If a moss gnome approaches you holding a flower, and this cannot be stressed enough, run. Moss gnomes usually live deep in the forest where flowers are rare, but they absolutely love them. And every once in a while, a ray of sunshine allows a flower to grow on their mossy body. If a moss gnome approaches you with a flower, it probably means that you accidentally trampled the flowers, or worst yet, picked it right from their head. Moss gnomes are not big, but they are heavy and very fierce. Their protruding tooth especially can cause damage, and there is a risk of it nestling in your arm, which can only end badly for said arm. Your best chance is to climb something high and sprinkle the angry moss gnome with flower seeds. They will still be angry, and some property damage can be expected, but they will recognize the gesture and will avoid damaging you. If the seeds grow nicely, you might even find a little bunch of flowers on your doorstep a little while later. And if the gnome really liked the flowers, that flower bunch will be wrapped with your favorite sock. Thought lost long ago.